Hi everyone, this is Michael, aka Epsilon Minus on MTGO. Going a little meta on you today. I originally posted this without commentary. I kind of played a little earlier than I thought I would, and I was in a rush and put the settings wrong. But I figured it'd be perhaps better to do some commentary since I generally prefer to watch the games with them, although it might be different with my commentary, we'll see. Uh, I'm playing against bactgudz. Pretty good player. Went to well, pretty good is an understatement. Played in the last Invitational, top aided the New York Stack Exchange Open, and also after this match, he just split the finals at the 20th anniversary draft qualifier at Gen Con for Vintage. So congratulations to him. And I'm playing a white weenie deck. He is playing a young Pyromancer deck. I'll refer you to the deck text section for more information on that. This was my opening hand. I believe I decided to keep it. Yes, I did. I figured I had the misstep and I had the Talia to slow him down. Student of Warfare. I think this was a pretty decent keep on my part. So I decided to lead with the Student of Warfare. And he got the first turn Pyromancer, which was ended up being pretty hard to deal with. I didn't really have a lot of main deck removal in this deck, and I found out the hard way that once he gets going, he board. It's very hard to attack through him. And he probes me. I thought about mental misstepping it, but I was like, what's the point? It's gonna make him a token, and it'll use up my misstep, which I could use on something more pressing later, like if he tried to follow up with a Cabal therapy. So, since he had a swamp, there was no point in playing Wasteland, so I decided to follow up with Cavernous Souls, naming Human, since I had Talia and Grand Abolisher in my hand. And I decided to go with Talia first, just to tax his spells and try to keep his token production under control. As it turned off my misstep for a turn. I can't remember whether that came back to haunt me or not. It'll be interesting to relook at this and see what he does next turn. So yeah, therapy. And then I realized that my misstep is not going to work. So yeah, I think that might have been the first mistake I made. I think maybe I should have led with Abolisher, which, makes me discard. And he would have been fairly useful even just as a 2-2 dork that I could have played Revoker, which, to be honest, I don't know how useful that was. I think the main mistake I made in this first game is I think I should have been pumping up my Student of Warfare as much as I could, because if I could have gotten him up to level 7, it would have been very difficult for him to deal with him. He would have had to trade in a lot of his tokens that he was generating. I also think I'd played against a Gush variant of this deck, and it's not quite as explosive as this one. This one does not run Gush. It runs a bunch of one casters like Probe, Therapy, Thoughtseize, Brainstorm, etc. And I think I was taken off guard just at how many tokens he was able to make in a turn, and just kind of over. I got probed once again, and I couldn't do much about it, although I didn't really have anything worth therapying at that point. So I think this is about coming to the time where I'd made my second mistake. I ended up going all in on this one. Well, I think I held the Revoker back, but I attacked with Talia, and I should have held her back because he's going to block with these 3 tokens and kill it. Whereas if I had just attacked with Student, he didn't have enough tokens to block. Well, he could have blocked with 3 tokens, but it would have not killed him. So that was definitely a mistake on my part, because once he started going, he started going. It's strange. I kind of find myself drawn towards creature decks, but I'm terrible at combat math, which probably says something. I think I'm even more terrible of a control player, though, so. So yeah, I'm up 20 to 11 at this point, but I think the tide had definitely turned. So he Thoughtseizes me, and I decided, I believe, to just let it resolve, because I didn't really, if I used my misstep, I'd use it and lose 2 life, and the Stony Silence just wasn't worth protecting, so I just let it resolve. Yeah, Stony Silence is a good card on Classic, but it's not really that effective against his deck. I think he has some Lotus Petals and maybe a Soul Ring, so not the greatest card in the world against him. So obviously he decided to take Misstep. So I ended up just taking it. There's just one damage. I wanted to keep my Revoker up. Not quite sure why. It wasn't really doing much for me, but... And then here's another possible mistake I made. Playing the Arbiter. I really think I should have been... he could have been at level 5 at that point. And I could have pumped him up to level 7 the turn after. Which I think would have made a big difference. I was deciding whether I wanted to trade my Revoker for a Shaman or not. I think I should have attacked with the Revoker right there, but who knows. So yeah, I had him 19 to 5, but I think in retrospect it was pretty obvious that the tide was turning. And basically just snap Gataxian Probe just to generate some more creatures to clog up the board. And by this time there's just no way for me to really get through. Not quite sure what he was thinking about with this turn right here. Perhaps it will all become clear as soon as he does something. I think he might have been doing combat math or something. So I drew a ghost quarter. I'm trying to, I believe. I knew that he was, because the deck lists in Classic League are public. I knew that he had played both his basics at that point, so my ghost quarter was basically a strip mine. So I think I was just trying to decide which one of these lands I wanted to hit. And really it was between the mountain and the trop. Hitting the trop would have taken him out of 2 colors, whereas hitting the mountain would have taken him off red. I think I was just looking to his graveyard to see what he had in there. I think I ended up doing the tropical island, and I think I got bolted next turn, so that might have been a mistake. Then I played the Stony Silence, and once again I'm like, level up my Student of Warfare. Like, he would have been at 7 by now, and basically I could have attacked with him because he would have been a 4/4 double strike, and basically he would have had to block with his board or, take the hit. So I ended up going all in. I was just trying to get through enough to, do some damage. I was kind of flailing at that point, I think. Yeah, here's the bolt that I mentioned. So it was pretty much over at this point. So I think my mistakes were not pumping up the student, attack into those 3 tokens, and not hitting his mount instead of his trop. I think maybe the trop mistake was perhaps debatable. Obviously I didn't know he had a lightning bolt in his hand, and it probably wouldn't have mattered if I had done the proper job leveling up that Student of Warfare. But I definitely think the Talia attack was a clear mistake, and not pumping the student was a clear mistake. Which, those 2 probably cost me this game, which I think I might have been able to win otherwise. And I also overvalued that Phyrexian Revoker. That wasn't quite as fatal, but a Revoker on Lotus Petal, especially when I had Stony Silence in my hand, really wasn't doing anything for me. I think even just trading with one of his tokens would not have been a bad use of that. So yeah, with no Talia and 4 lands out and a lot of cheap spells, he can definitely pump a bunch of tokens in them. And the other thing about playing this deck, and of course I top deck up Plains, which is the worst draw you can get in the world. The other thing about this deck that makes Pyromancer pretty good, I feel like this is superior to your run-of-the-mill Storm deck, is he kind of gives you inevitability. I mean, you don't want to make the attack through those tokens because you're making unfavorable trades because you can just build him back up again, you really need a removal spell to just get rid of the. I mean, it's just an uphill battle. And yeah, at this point, I snap Bolt on Arbiter, and he has 900 creatures, and I have nothing. And I draw Grafdigger's Cage, which would have been nice, you know, on my first turn, but at this point, I'm just counting up and confirming that I'm dead next turn, so I end up giving him the good game. Of course, Moto was not cooperating with me in terms of typing. Alright. So, that was game one. A little painful to rewatch because I think I probably could have won it if I hadn't made those misplays, but hindsight's 20/20. And now we're coming up on the part that just broke my heart. What happened is I was sideboarding and Magic Online decided to crash on me in the middle of sideboarding, so I did not get to sideboard during this game. Which I think was a pretty big disadvantage, unfortunately. If I could have sideboarded, I would have probably taken out the Katakis for sure. I would have probably taken out the Stony Silences. And I definitely would have brought in the Path and the Swords. And I definitely would have brought in the 2 Ether Sworn Canonists. If I still had stuff to take out, it probably would have been like maybe a Revoker and Relic Wood or something like that. I also might have brought in a couple Rest in Pieces, because with the Snapcasters, the Deathrite, the Therapies, he definitely relies quite a bit on his yard. But yeah, this was... Moto just crashed. So, yeah, no fun there, but what can you do? So, here's the start of game 2. I was hoping Karmic Justice would be with me and that I could win this match and get a chance to sideboard. Ended up mulling this one, I think. It just didn't have enough action. And I kept that one. I figured Talia plus 2 missteps wasn't too bad. It'd give me something early to do against him, and it would give me some way to tax his spells. So we end up both mulling. And I just lead with the plains. Didn't have a student in my hand, so nothing much else to do with that one. Obviously, have my misstep at the ready. So he plays a Soul Ring, and that's pretty much an auto misstep, especially since I'm trying to play Talia and tax him. I actually think this hand might have been a winner if I had Wasteland. And I select Human. I think I actually played the Abolisher first because I wanted to keep Misstep up. I think I might have remembered last game. I think that's another mistake I might have made. Fortunately, that Abolisher wasn't a lean in Arbiter, else I would have been in business this game, but So he has an early Pyromancer once again. And this time I got a Student of Warfare. I went with Talia first. And I left 1 mana up so that I could have Misstep open for his next turn. Then I attacked with the Abolisher. I'm pretty much willing to, if I'm playing a young Pyromancer base deck, I'm pretty much willing to trade any creature with the Pyromancer. Obviously, usually a competent Pyromancer player won't block, but I feel pretty safe attacking into a board with just young Pyromancer on it because I know I'm probably going to get through. And I got the Bolt. Luckily that Misstep mana open instead of playing the Student of Warfare. The nice thing about Pyromancer though is you do get the token regardless of whether your spell resolves or not. So right there at Ghost Quarter, I think I was contemplating on if I should play it and what I should hit if I did play it. So I played the Student off the Cavern obviously, so he wouldn't get countered and I could level him up. So far I actually think I've played this one pretty well. I'm sure maybe some misplays will come up, but you can tell how much more experienced my opponent is than me by the fact that his deck is all foiled out and mine's not. So we decided to Demonic Tutor. Don't remember what it was he grabbed. I think it was probably a Lightning Bolt. I should have leveled up my Student rather than Metal, which honestly wasn't that big of a deal. But I think I thought that, it would down. I didn't attack with my Abolisher. I think I should have. Because even if he double teamed it, it would have gotten rid of 2 of his tokens. Yeah, this was Snap on Lightning Bolt, which was unfortunate. The other nice thing about Abolisher is because of his text not allowing your opponent to cast spells. Mostly protects you against counter spells, but also protects you from having Snapcaster flashed in as a blocker. And I guess maybe I shouldn't have leveled up the Stone of Warfare since he would have just gotten bolted anyway. I mean, I think that was technically probably the correct play, but the fact that Relic Water got in ended up being satisfactory. And so this is where I had to use my Ghost Quarter, and I was trying to decide which land I wanted to do. I think I ended up doing his Trop, his Volk. Which is I think I should have attacked there, at least with maybe the Relic Water. But I think my idea was I would keep these three back to block and then try to... But as we're about to see, that plan didn't go too well, since he had the bolt from my Mind Sensor, unfortunately. And I think that's pretty much where my last hope of taking this one down went. I actually don't think I played too badly in this one. I just think he had some good draw, some bolts for my creatures, which also made some tokens for him, and yeah. And then, yeah, Soul Clamp, once that came down, it was just over. The way this, Pyromancer Skull Clamp engine works is you, basically, you play spells, you get a creature, you kill the creature, you draw cards, you play those cards, you get more creatures, and it's just pretty much impossible to stop. I guess when I said Stony Silence wasn't that great against him, I had forgotten that he had Skull Clamp until that just came up. That might have been a reason to keep it in. I think I decided that the Relic Quarter is expendable. I was hoping to get his block with Snapcaster. I probably should have decided that the Relic Quarter was expendable a few turns ago. But at this point, like I said, once Skull Clamp came down, it was kind of over. Yeah, when you're 8 turns into the game and your opponent has a full hand and you have nothing, it's usually not going too well for you. And then the second Pyromancer came down. And I drew Path to Exile, which would have been nice like a couple turns before the Skull Clamp came out. He had another Pyromancer, so it didn't really affect his engine very much, unfortunately. Because if he hadn't Skull Clamp to draw those cards to get into the second Pyromancer, I don't think he would have been a terrific position with, just 4 tokens on the board at 7 life. this is another Snapcaster lightning bolt deal. That's why it would have been nice to bring in the Rest in Pieces or draw Digger's Cage, because that can be a pretty back-breaking play. And then of course I top deck another planes. That's definitely the drawback to a deck like this. It does not have much of a late game when you're in a top deck war, because sometimes you'll just top deck like planes or an extra Graph Diggers or an extra Stony Silence or some terrible card. So you really do kind of have to lock him down early, because once you get to this point where he has I'm actually not sure why I didn't just concede by this point. Maybe just out of clinging. I think another path maybe might have done it, since he was getting a little greedy with the skull clamp there. Although with all that skull clamping he was doing, he could have very well drawn into a counter spell for that anyway. I was just trying to make the final total a little bit more respectable at that point. I think I knew I was pretty much gone. I think I decided to misstep this. I'm not quite sure why. I think it's just so I was actually doing something. Actually, I think the reason I did it was not that I had entertained serious thoughts of winning, but kind of an inevitability, because he doesn't have to attack to win. He ended up just hard casting a Force of Will though, so it didn't really matter in the end. So I was down to 1 at this point. and I think I just drew my card that wasn't going to do me any good, and then I gave him the good games and good luck with the rest of the tournament. She wrote, I definitely, looking back on the second game, I think it was better. I wish I could have sideboarded. I don't know if it would have guaranteed me victory, but definitely would have helped. But thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you guys in round 2.